So let's jump in. I want to give you an overview of what's coming and also just dive right into day one. So let's jump in. All right. So here's the overview. Today, we're going to go over what makes up successful content. I want to talk you through some of the changes in the last couple of years. There's been a huge shift in content marketing. If you're not aware, that all happened thanks to the pandemic. And I've shared it in several trainings I've done in here. So you might have heard it before, but it's worth going over again. And then we'll get into the logistics of everything, content planning, using a content calendar, and then starting out with content improvement, your lowest hanging fruit, and then thinking about generating content briefs for all that new content, the new keywords you can target. So it's going to be a full day. I'm just saying, like, this is going to get crazy, but let's dive right in. Day 2 is going to be the people. So the AIO approach, how to save tons and tons of cost, and not just the cost of people, but really the stress of creating a heavy company that takes a lot of people. I've had a team of 100 writers. So my goodness, you don't have to do it anymore, right? Because of AI. So we'll go into that on day 2. I'm really excited to share that with you because that is going to be a game changer. If you have an agency structured with a lot of people that you're just not sure are even pulling their weight. So we'll talk about a whole new approach to content on day 2, which is tomorrow. Day 3 is going to be a lot of going through what we already talked about, making sure it's clear, answering any questions, and then content tracking and management. And I actually have a team member from Content at Scale joining me for day 2 and 3 to help with Q&A. So that's coming up. All right. So here's day 1. We're here. And I'm going to start out with what makes up successful content. So first of all, you've heard this before. Content is everything. That is still the truth. I'm going to quote Ryan Stewart. You can't do great marketing without great content. It's the truth. You can't. So content is the lifeblood of any SEO campaign. It's really the crux of success. And in the end, we are people reaching people, even though we have this giant thing called AI in the middle that is our new vehicle to creating content really 10 times faster. I know you hear that. It's probably a, gimmicky headline by now, but it's the truth. You can do it if you do it correctly because, content's not easy, but with AI, it's going to get a lot easier than it's ever been for us. So creating consistent volumes of content really allows us to satisfy EAT, which is that acronym you all know, I am sure, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust, which are Google's page quality rater guidelines whenever they look at ranking high value content. So I was reviewing some of the lessons here in the blueprint, and there's so much good stuff. I got to say, like, even if it was created years ago, that is still so true. And one of those concepts is money keywords. So whenever you're targeting these low competition keywords in your niche, which is something I've always done the last 10 years of creating, goodness, I don't know how many pages of content by now. It's in the tens of thousands with my team. But this is something we always did. We targeted these low competition keywords. Those are your money keywords. That's how you can rank so much more quickly, even if you don't have a high DA site and you don't have a ton of history. But that can really get you to the top a lot more quickly. So it's all about the keywords that you target. And you want to think about scalable traffic, right? Building up topical authority for a ton of keywords. If you create, it takes consistent content, a volume of content to rank for a majority of keywords. Topical authority really plays in here. That's something we'll be talking a lot about as well. So the other benefits of content, you already know all this, so we're going to blaze through it, but it really helps you support your sales team. This is something that I do a lot of. I make sure that anyone in success and sales, if they have a reoccurring question, we are going to blog about that question. Maybe we'll create a PDF, and that is now a tool that the sales team can use whenever they're talking to customers. So any kind of frequently asked question is also a content piece. And that's going to do twofold thing. It can rank for a keyword because you always want to find a keyword for your piece of content, but it can also be an incredible tool that the sales team uses whenever they're answering that question over and over. And the benefit of that is Again, if you think about a lean, mean team of one, if you have content that's answering sales questions, then you can go and make that content the answer versus having to rely on people, training those people, headhunting, hoping you find the right person. You've been down that path, right? So content as the answer, and then just having somebody. It's interesting. We've structured a whole team from the Philippines that are answering questions using content that we've written, that our super high level reps that are based here in the States have written, put a lot of thought into, made them content marketing pieces. So anyway, it's a whole other benefit. We can go into that for hours and hours, but content is amazing because of all of these multi-purpose ways in which you can use it. And of course, links. If you ever did a link building campaign, it's really hard when you don't have good content. So that is a vehicle to creating awesome backlinks and getting that DA through the roof. And of course, the path to purchase. Have you ever heard it takes 7 touches before somebody buys? Well, again, you can automate those touches with content. You don't have to have a big team of people. If you have a content system, a content library that feels like a rabbit hole, that's the best thing you could ever build for your business, because it really creates this binge-worthy experience that brings, I'm telling you, trust and sales. It's amazing. Okay. So this is the slides that I added in the last 10 minutes that Ryan hasn't seen, because I thought this was so important. It's something I teach on a lot, but I'll tell you, like, I see it over and over today right now. So in the last few years, something happened. And it affected content as a whole. Like I'm telling you, it changed the trajectory and it changed the ROI that our content can have. And it made content about 10 times more valuable, but only for content that's done well. And all the superficial garbage kind of completely flopped that might have been doing okay before. So here's what happened. Something called 2020. We're not going to get political, not going to attach names or labels to this. You know what happened that year. It had something to do with COVID, the pandemic. So here's what happened to trust. Something pretty crazy. I studied this all that year, was pretty addicted to finding out what was happening because there was a huge shift going on in search volume as well. So what happened was trust kind of left a lot of traditional media, and look at what it did to social media. Yeah, it's an all-time record low. Search engine trust actually still stayed pretty high. So over the next few months in 2020, when March hit and the pandemic really set in, lockdowns started to happen, search traffic had a 2-year increase in 1 month. So typically a year increase is 1 billion or so in new daily search traffic. Well, over 2020 in March, it went from 3.5 billion to 7 billion. And I kept watching Internet Live Stats thinking that number would drop. It hasn't. Over the last 3 years, it's actually increased from there. And now it's upwards of 8 billion searches per day. 8 billion searches per day. Now, when ChatGPT came out last November, there was a small blip of traffic decrease, especially top of funnel searches, which I've heard Ryan talk about. He makes a great point. If you're only targeting top of funnel searches that could be easily answered by AI, probably not a good keyword strategy anyway. Think about the searches that are super targeted to people that want your services or your clients. So that's the pivot you want to think about, but people are still Googling. Let me tell you, like ChatGPT hasn't affected this. People still want a link. They still want to read more, and they still want to read from a real human, even if AI wrote it. We'll talk about that more because you can do that. But I'll tell you something that occurred because of this rift in trust. And what happened in trust was that it left 3 major market sectors. So it left the government, nonprofit, and the media. You can see this in a study by Edelman. This is all they study, consumer trust. They studied 30,000 consumers in multiple continents, and this is what they found. So when trust left those major market sectors, and we all know what happened in 2020, it's not a surprise to me that trust left those sectors. It went somewhere else. Guess where it went? The entrepreneur, the small business owner. This was incredible. Trust was actually at an all-time high. So we're on the heels of that shift. That has never happened before in history, where we've actually had trust leave Major markets that had control of consumer trust and the opportunity to actually have more trust from our consumer by default than a nonprofit would, the media would, or the government would. So that's pretty unreal. And I think this is why in 2021, I saw something happen with my blogging strategy. So I publish a blog religiously twice a week on my own site, just as, I got to be the proof of my own pudding here, see how this thing is working. Also, I'm a writer and I love to do it. So in 2021, I saw blogging work better for me than ever. And my approach is something I call olive funnel. And I've actually taught this approach to Ryan's team at Webris. And I've had a training call here where I showed some of you how to do it. We can go deeper on that. I'll share resources after this call is over in Slack if you want to learn more about that. But basically, it's just treating your blog as an entire funnel. How do you answer every question someone would have throughout the whole funnel in that one piece of content? So whenever I was doing this, and this is really how you define good content, it's meaty, it's thorough, it answers every question. Well, I saw those blogs work better than ever. And I've never seen in the history of time, and I've been blogging since 2011, where people actually went from reading that blog from a cold Google search where they typed in something like how to build an online business, found my blog, and then went straight into my coaching program that cost $2,500 that taught them how to do just that. So I'd never seen that happen before. I was pretty blown away without a call. Now, I'm not saying you can do that in every industry. I think you still need multiple touch points, but it's really important to realize the opportunity that we have with content that goes deep. The opportunity is amazing. So if you ever hear the myths, people have a shorter attention span than a goldfish, yada, yada. They're not thinking about this, which is when you have this targeted keyword that somebody's actually Googling and you have content that answers every question on that keyword that somebody could have, the likelihood of that person taking the next step is very, very high. In fact, potentially higher than it ever was because of what happened to consumer trust. Okay, so I had to share that because it's just wild what's happening. And I'm still seeing that happen this year with trust achieved from a really good blog. So here's a quick look at the olive funnel approach. Again, we could spend hours here, and you still need to think about each stage. But what you can do is take one piece of content, answer the awareness stage, address them there, think about the consideration stage with multiple CTAs to a lead magnet, a free video, something like that. And then at the end of your blog, you can actually capture them and call them to act with a persuasive section. You really just end in a persuasive call to action that takes them into whatever you want them to do before they buy, whether that's book a call, a demo, a trial, something like that. Typically, I think book a call is one of the most popular next step, especially if you're a consultant, you have an agency. But if you end in that and you've written really good content or you've had AI write the majority of it, you can capture leads like crazy. It's working really, really well. So this also hasn't changed since the beginning of time. This is true. In the end, we're using AI as a vehicle, but we're still reaching people. You're not trying to reach robots. You're not trying to reach an algorithm. You're trying to reach people. Never forget that. And that's why good content will always win. The best content is what wins here. So whenever you're targeting that keyword, whenever you're putting together that content brief, whenever you're reviewing that piece of content, is it good? Is it good? Would I actually read this? Would I benefit from this? Would I save this in my own bookmarks to read later because it's that good? This is the kind of content we need to create to get that incredible opportunity of trust that we can now get in 2023. So AI is here. It's changing everything. We can now produce content so much more quickly and affordably. And that's what I'm going to share with you in my process today. So I think the new content king is something called undetectable content. And if you haven't heard this phrase, it simply means content that cannot be detected as AI. So here's what Google sees when it comes to AI generated content. They look at content as being high quality. And that's what they look for when they rank content. Does it demonstrate EAT? Does it have expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness in that content? And then they actually have a section now about how automation can create helpful content. But if you use AI to generate content with the primary purpose of manipulating ranking, well, that's a violation of our spam policies. So that's not new. If you create content to spam, you're not going to rank. That's not new news. Content has to be good, and it's okay to use AI. That's what Google actually says. But in the end, it has to be high quality. So I've talked to people that review content for Google. One of them is Gail at Authority Hackers. And it's a known fact that Google actually puts content through detectors. And if it's detected as AI, it won't rank. That's why it's critical to be really careful. I would not use ChatGPT to write SEO content unless you heavily rewrite it, because ChatGPT does come through as detectable. You can run it through Originality. You can run it through our AI detector. We were actually one of the first to build an AI content detector back in December last year. I didn't build this tool. I joined it in 2021, and now I'm a partner because I believe in it so much. But you really want to make sure that your AI content is undetectable. That is critical to getting your content from AI and then ranking at the top of Google. And there's human work, right, that still goes into this. So we'll talk about that too. So there's only really two undetectable AI writers in existence, Surfer SEO and Content at Scale. I wanted to give them both a fair shake because you know which one I work for. But I wanted to put them both here so you can actually see the benefits of these different tools. So for me, the reason that I use Content at Scale, and I'll show you my workflow, is because we have all of the tools in here now. The last time I ran Surfer SEO, which was last week, to see if it had changed, it still takes about 20 minutes to generate one piece. And that's if you click their button that says boost anti-AI detection. So that adds a lot more time to the generation process. And you still need to do about 30 minutes of human work. So Content at Scale generates in under 7 minutes. You're going to need to do some human work still, go through that content, but it's pretty close to publish ready. Surfers is as well. It's just more of a co-writing process. You got to click buttons. You got to go through it all. Whereas Content at Scale, you feed it a keyword and it'll create content straight from there. So that's a look at the undetectable AI writers out there. Make sure that your content is undetectable. You don't want to publish straight from ChatGPT. Bad recipe. So the other flip side of this is if you're doing human only content, then I would say you're in a zone that is very likely to be in the next few months archaic, costly, and stupid. Because I can't tell you how many people I'm seeing that either used to run content agencies or currently are, that are letting their team go completely. And I'm talking like large groups of human writers. These people, these business owners didn't actually adapt. They didn't think AI was a good solution. They didn't look into it at all. They kind of turned the other eye, looked the other way. They said, I'm not going to do it. And they kept their human writers. So I think the comments about changing writers into editors, the approach we have as optimizers, is the one to take. It's not the time to fire all your writers, not saying that, but it is the time to get lean and to change what your writers do, to actually have them use AI to 10x their output and get way more smart at content creation. So you definitely don't want to be in Jack's shoes where this agency owner actually had to let his entire team go. Well, it was half of their entire team. That really sucks. So you don't want to get there. You want to think about pivoting now and using AI so that your team does get lean and profitable and you don't have this happen. So I made this meme from The Office. When you realize you should have adapted to AI instead of selling human content writing, I made that meme when a fellow agency owner reached out to me in the DMs. I won't name names, but she said, you're lucky to sell your agency when you did. We just shut down. We didn't have a single client left after AI came out, which is crazy. I really think that doesn't have to happen. right? I think that we can really pivot and actually get way more profitable because AI is here. So I am definitely the optimist in the room. I want all of you to be, because of what you can do building a business now. You can save anywhere from 5 all the way up to 25x on what it used to cost to create content human only. So I built this approach called AIO. You've probably heard of it. There's a lot of writers on LinkedIn putting this in their headlines on LinkedIn. They're saying they're AIO writers, which I love, but it's pivoting the approach of what you do as a writer into an optimizer of the AI machine. So you take AI output and you make that ready for publishing. And that's a series of steps. I built a framework for those steps. I'll show you what that is coming up soon. But you really want to think about the writers on your team changing into this, an AIO writer, because what you can do is 10x your output with this switch. AI literally feels like giving your writer more arms, the capability to do more content without any burnout. It's amazing. You know, I've seen writers double, triple, quadruple their output and leave their desk earlier, be stressed less because they're using AI as the baseline of their process now. And you really can mimic the quality and output of multiple different expertise levels. You know, we have multiple industries here. One size does not fit all, but you can manipulate and train AI in these different levels. And you really can match the output of anywhere from 5 cents a word all the way up to 25 cents a word. How do I know? I've actually helped people that were paying that much per word. They were shocked with the output and the capabilities. Like, people are actually using AI to write complete articles for publications like entrepreneur.com and sending that through with minimal editing because it's that good. But remember what we talked about earlier, undetectable original content, right? And there's only 2 tools out there right now that do both of those things: fully original, fully undetectable. And that's Content at Scale and Serve for SEO. Okay, so what's coming up ahead in the tactical stuff are really things, tactics, techniques in these 3 areas. So how do you define content success? What is the AIO content process? And what are the AI content tools to use? So I'm going to show you my exact content process, how I go through content, build up. We're looking at over 700,000 unique monthly visitors at Content at Scale now, and that is 100% organic traffic. So I'll show you how we're doing that and a behind the scenes look at our own approach. So that's coming up in the next few days. We could spend hours today, but we're breaking it up into multiple days, which I think is a good idea. So we can, eat, drink, and sleep. There's a lot here. Okay. So let's leave the land of the landscape and let's jump into the actual content techniques. Okay. So this is something covered in the blueprint very well: content types. I think that a lot of the things you've learned are 100% still relevant, including the types and the different tactics that we should be doing. And I'll add to that the areas to focus on, because here's the thing: you could do so much when it comes to content, right? I mean, just look at this list. This is a lot of stuff. And it can kind of make somebody freeze and go, well, what the heck do I do first? So I'll tell you what to do first. And I'll tell you that less is more when it comes to long form content, in-depth long form content. Whenever you have somebody immersed in your website in particular, over like social media, over channels you don't own, you always get better results. Okay, so I did this study last year. I actually asked myself, does short form content work as well as long form? Because for years, I hadn't seen it work nearly as well. And here's what happened. So on the short form content side, we published almost 400 videos, 316. We got 250,000 views. And here's the actual customers that we got. Got one customer out of that at $2,500 who had poor expectations and commitment issues. This customer was the worst. And then we had one prospect at $2,500 who, by the way, is still out there considering. So, which ended up in a refund of 75% of that $2,500. So over here on the long form content side, and this is no ads, this is a straight organic content traffic comparison. So on the long form side, we did 12 YouTube videos, not that much for the year, 52 emails, 48 blogs. Out of that, we had over 60 ideal customers and $200,000 in sales without one single refund or dispute. That is pretty wild. So if you're asking yourself, what type of content is the best to do, it really is long form still, and it always will be. I've, through my work at Content at Scale, we partner with some of the biggest names in blogging to be their affiliate partner. And I've seen behind the scenes of their content strategy, been on calls, and it's crazy. It's crazy to see that they're seeing the same thing. In fact, some of them completely ditched doing short form because it just became a waste of time and money. So long form still works. Want to put that out there. And really the best types of content you could do when it comes down to it are these: traffic building content. That's your SEO content, non-SEO content on big publications that really builds up expertise, it builds up mentions, and it builds up PR. So that's a really good avenue still today. And then emails, putting out consistent emails is a great way to nurture your audience, build trust, and make money. On the other side, the non-text long form video content on YouTube wins out by far. Short form video depends on your industry and what you're doing. And podcasts and webinars also are great formats, but I would say still not as good as the long form video that you could do on YouTube, specifically because you can target keywords. Okay, so what are we doing in our content strategy? 2 to 5 blogs a week over on Content Hacker. We're doing a lot more on Content at Scale, anywhere from 10 to 20 per week. 2 email newsletters a month. That's consistent newsletters where we're sending out to people what we're actually doing, a little story, really make these personalized. And that's what makes good email, is you get in their inbox and they know it's you. They're like, oh, I recognize this person. Oh, I want to know what they're up to. And it's funny because whenever I spoke at Brighton SEO, we had people that recognized me from my emails. And they said, oh yeah, I read your email today about how you stayed in an Airbnb and you saw a llama. It's funny, like that created memorability. So the more personal your emails get, definitely the better. So we're also doing a guest blog per month and then 1 YouTube video per month. Although I'll say sometimes it's 1 every other month, just because sometimes it's hard to get to. Ryan will know this soon, but I do have a 19-month-old that sometimes stays home from school. I have a 9-year-old as well, who also sometimes stays home from school. So that can impact content production. But as long as we have these evergreen formats going out every single week, we get results, we get sales. So traffic building blogs, you can do 90% of these, I would say, with AI. I'm going to show you how. So I stole this chart from the blueprint. These are great keywords to target. These are informational based keywords. So whenever you think about these, you can actually target keywords and then create that all of funnel content that walks people through every step of the funnel. And I'll show you what that looks like as well. Okay, so I believe we are at the screen sharing part coming up soon. So we want to research for the right keywords. That's always step 1. Think about competitors, think about doing a keyword gap analysis, and then think about low-hanging fruit. So we'll jump straight into how I would do this, the process, and walk you through that, as well as thinking about creating clusters. So how do you dominate? How do you win for your keywords? You want to think about topical authority, and clusters around those topics really come into play. So we'll walk through that as well. So setting up a content plan and a content calendar. I can tell you we can actually do most of this in Content at Scale. We have a feature launching an entire content calendar that resembles a lot of the popular ones out there, like Monday.com's calendar boards, popular CMSs. So I'll give you a little preview of what's coming. That'll be available to everyone who has the content producer plan here in the next, should be 2 weeks or less. And I'm told not to give dates, but this time I can because it's actually very close to completion. So that's how I would set up my content plan, because I can do it all in one platform. Why wouldn't I? It's just so much simpler, right? So I'll walk you through how I do that. And then existing content, I'm going to actually use SEMrush to look for low-hanging fruit, pick that up, and then create content with AI, again, without a writer, 10 times faster, get it done, get it in the queue, and get it ready to republish, and then rank for that keyword. So that's when you look at your top 20, your top 10 positions, and you want to try to get them all the way up to top 3, looking at informational keywords. And of course, new content, because you want to always go after that as well. Build up major topical authority. Okay, so before I screen share here in a second, just a reminder, your sales process is critical to the success of content. So if you don't have one, if you don't have this in place, think about doing it. If you consult clients, I would even throw it out there, remind them they don't have a good sales process. That content is not going to do any good. Like it's really not. This has to go hand in hand. And Ryan has a great sales process shared in the blueprint. If we want to drop this Miro link, this is in one of the lessons, but it's really good to review again. Dragana, I think you have that Miro link if you want to drop that here. But just thinking through, how do I take somebody from a lead all the way to closed? That whole process, which is not a content process, right? It's a sales process, is something really critical to get right. I would say before you launch a lot of content so that you actually have a way to close leads. And it could be as simple as an application form that really makes people feel like you are qualifying them and bringing them to that next step. And then that form just goes to a book a call page, and then you can easily close them from there. So think about that, right? That's pretty critical here to get that right. So there's a whole section on that. We won't go through that today, but think about that whenever you're getting consistent with your content. Okay, so let's do this. Let's create content. Let's go through setting up a content plan and how I would do each step. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this and then switch into my tools for this process. So what I'd love to do, I don't know what you think of this, Ryan, is if we have somebody here that actually has a keyword and a project they want to create content for, we could kind of create it from there. That would be cool. Otherwise, I can just create content for Content Hacker. What do we think? If somebody has a keyword and a website that they're creating content for, drop that in the comments. And because what that would do is make that super targeted to you, and that way you can actually walk away with a usable piece of content. Let's see here. If we don't have any takers, I'm going to create this for myself. Just saying. We got questions coming in. Okay, I want to keep this going because I know if I stop for questions right now, the content process, we probably will miss it. So, okay, I don't see anybody volunteering. So, Matt, that was a keyword. That wasn't a question. What's the average payout for medical negligence? Okay, that's a keyword. So what I need from here is the website that we're creating for. So if you can give that to me, we will create content for that keyword. That's great. And that's a nice informational keyword as well. Okay, osborneslaw.com. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to go into the content process. We'll use Matt's keyword. I'm going to copy this over here. So we'll use that as our guinea pig for content creation, which that will bleed over into day 2 content creation. But let's go into the strategy side of this. Okay, so one of the first things I do, right, is looking at low-hanging fruit and by running a SEMrush audit. So pretty simple, nothing fancy here. I really just go to the organic research tab in SEMrush, put in the root domain, and then I start digging into the positions. And what I like to do is go here, click the drop down, look at top 20. I'm going to hit apply. And anything that's below top 3 is really my low hanging fruit. And I can do so much with that. In fact, what I'm going to do is probably narrow down to the top 10. And then I'm going to look for like top number 8, number 7, see what's starting to rank there, and then pull those pieces into my process. So this is ideal if you have sites that have existing traffic, right? You can really do a lot of damage, especially if there's a lot of traffic. This is what I'm doing more so with our content strategy at Content at Scale, because we have so much content out there now, so many keywords that we can rank for, so many keywords getting picked up. So always think about topical authority, right? If you see, like, for example, here's a keyword, here's another keyword for the same page, right? So at this point, what I would do is I would actually start building an Excel file of these multiple terms for one page. And of course, we can sort by specific pages. So that's something I would do as well. This page, I'm not going to do it right now because this page is a known page where we are ranking for, I would say, probably 800 keywords. So that is off with a very specific SEO strategist. So I'm not going to include that in this strategy. I'm going to think about the blog for now. That page, we're actually doing some NLP testing to see, it's a major guinea pig to see what SEO strategies work. So we're having some fun with it. That's how I qualify that. But what I want to do is look at blog potentials. So this one, how to use Google Analytics for bloggers. It's ranking for Google Analytics blogger, which I don't love that keyword. So whenever we're thinking about keywords for our website, which ones have that specific intent? And Matt's keyword is a great example of an informational keyword. What's the average payout for medical negligence? It's a very specific keyword, right? So that's something else you want to think about whenever you're looking for low-hanging fruit opportunities. Are these keywords actually good? Think about that too. Okay, so here's a really good one. Does Shopify have a blog option? And that's matching this very specific keyword that I was going after with this blog post. So I would do the process here is I would actually use AI to rewrite this whole thing. So the process I use is fully done in Content at Scale. It's the tool that I live in. So what I'm going to do is pull up this blog. Does Shopify have a blog option? I'm actually going to search for it using our search bar because everything we write is actually written with Content at Scale. So I can find it likely through here. There are some pieces that we have other writers. Well, I will write if it's a case study. We only have 2 writers because we can do so much, let me tell you, just with one writer. So finding this piece of content and then updating it, that would be my next step. This depends on how old this was. Let's see, this was back in June. I'm just thinking through what I would, because at this point, what I would do is I would tag this in Content at Scale for an update and then hand it off to my writer and then add any notes. So for this piece in particular, we have a Shopify plugin. So we want to make sure, like, if there's if our app updated and the screenshot doesn't look the same, that's a note that I would give the writer whenever I'm generating the brief for this piece. I would tell them, hey, make sure that we get updates to the screenshots of our tool. So that's specific to updating a piece of content. You want to think about, is there any changes to services, any changes to, for us, it's a product marketing focus. So if there's any changes to the product, make sure that that shows up in there. So we're going to keep moving because I can't find this post in the back end. Thank you, technology. Not always my friend. But that would be the next step. Is I would find it in here and then hand it off to the writer. So think about low-hanging fruit, hand it off to a writer, make sure that they're hitting those points of updating the content. Don't mess with it too much. And something that I like, let's actually just go find a piece of content and then I'll show you what I would do if that content, let's say, was ranking in the top 20. So let's say it's this one. I'm just going to pull this from our back end here. Let's say this one was the one published ranking in the top 10. So what you can actually do with this tool in particular is you can go and have it rewrite the full piece of content. And every time it rewrites, you can also delete it and generate a whole new post, but I would actually just rewrite it. Then it's pulling from Google every time the minute you hit that button. So it's pulling directly from Google to write a new piece of content, which is what a writer should be doing whenever they're researching current information for that piece of content. So that's why I like using this tool. It's actually doing the steps a writer would take whenever they're updating an old piece of content. So it's scraping Google that second for what's the top competing pieces out there. And then it's compiling. There's 3 different LLMs behind this tool. It's compiling new content for that piece of content based on what it's seeing in Google as the competing pieces. And you can see this under the research tab, the ranking content. You can see what it's actually pulling for as the top pieces, and you can change that in the sources. So if you want to heavily change this, you could generate a new piece of content, give it new sources to compete for. Okay, so let's use Matt's keyword and let's actually go through the workflow of generating a new piece of content. Going to bounce around a little bit here, but I think this will help to really show you some of the steps, especially in setting up, because setup is pretty critical. Okay, so what we're going to do is set this up initially before we start writing. Pretty simple if you're using this tool. So I'm going to pull up the homepage. I'm going to basically start training the AI a little bit on what this client, let's say this is my client, on what this client is actually doing, who they serve, what they do. So project context. And if you're prompting ChatGPT, this is what you want to do, right? You want to actually tell ChatGPT what the project is all about. But remember, you have that undetectable problem. So ChatGPT is going to write detectable content. So just make sure you paraphrase it and you take what reads as robotic and you change that into more human-like content. And I think a solid question, when will that get better? It definitely will get better, especially with AGI coming. If AGI isn't here already, you know, Sam Altman got fired and then rehired by OpenAI. So potentially that's because AGI came out, they're saying now, and that had bearing on why he got fired. So when AGI is out, that makes AI capable of doing almost anything at a human level. That's like the Skynet stuff, right? That's why I'm working in AI, because I mean, that's here. It's crazy. Okay, so what you're going to do is train the model, and I really like using content at scale because you just fill out fields and it's that simple. So I'm going to say for the context, just going to say law firm in London with a focus on serving clients, focus on, let's say, stellar client service. And if there's any specific industry or type of law that this would also serve, you want to think about that as well. So target audience, let's see. Going to pick something from here. This homepage really isn't built out that well. So it's a point to, they do need content. Yeah, the homepage is a little bare, I would say. It's interesting. There's no specific type of law identified. Maybe it's general law practice. And I'm sure you could tell me, Matt, if you want to drop in the comments. Let's see here. Look at the neg page. I'm going to pull some stuff from the about page too. Okay, this is pretty good. This would be what I would say is better context. The largest private client law firm in London. That's really good stuff. That's specific. A lot more specific than that. Okay, there we go. I like that a lot better. Target audience, we need to find out who they actually serve. Let's see. Might not be in here. Okay, specializing in family and divorce, wills, and contentious probate disputes. That's a lot. Not surprised. I mean, they are the largest private client law firm in London. All right, so we're going to put that in here, target audience. And we can do several things with this tool. We can train it on a custom tone of voice. And training it means we take existing content from their blog, we drop it in, to a specific section, and then that trains the model on writing content like that. So if they are a very picky client, if they have a specific style, that's what I would do. Is I would definitely train the model. So Matt, I'd love to know, is this a client that's like, hey, you need to use my specific style and tone of voice? And this could be a good page to have it train on, because this is a good page. Why choose? We got FAQ structure here, services. Yeah, that's a lot of services. So let me know if they have a specific style. Right now I'm going to pick probably in front. They do. Okay. So tell me if this page represents their style. And we'll use that for the training model. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah. And this is good content. So I wouldn't be worried to train the AI on this style of content. All right. So we're going to say custom here, and then that will set up a custom training tab. I'm pretty sure it's UK because it's London. So we're going to pick that, UK English. All right. And then that creates our project. So again, if we were in ChatGPT, you want to think about training the model by telling it, hey, you are now a professional copywriter, and then give it all of that. Here's the company you're writing for. Here's their target audience. So you're priming it up, right? Think about this as you got to give it some context for it to write good content. But remember, ChatGPT writes detectable content. This is a tool stack of 3 LLMs that always writes original, undetectable content. All right, so we're going to train the AI on their sample. So to do that, we only need one good sample. We can do up to 3. And then we can name it and then save it to just one project. So I'm going to say that. This is perfect if you have a specific style for a specific client, which I think most of us do. You know, we're dealing with higher tier clients that do really want their content to sound human-like. So that's gonna be important. All right, so I'm gonna pull this intro. This is really good content, Matt. I don't know if you got to tell us if AI helped write this at all. It's to the point. There's very little fluff. It's clear. I'm going to guess this might be 80% human or more, because it's hard to get AI to write this clear. Our tool does. It's one of the ones that does better. It's mostly human. Makes sense. Very little fluff. Okay, so that's the introduction. Going to go ahead and save that. We're going to move to the sections of content. So if there's any notes for the introduction, this is where we can kind of guide it. And I'm going to say, based on this, detailed, but to the point, right? Detailed, clear, targeted, and to the point introductory content. Okay, and then we fed it a sample of an introduction. So now we're going to go to a section. We're going to train the AI with a section. So I'm going to pull in, probably going to skip a list of services because we don't need to do that for every blog. And I'm going to pull in this. Again, we're thinking about clear to the point content examples. You always want to train AI with good stuff, not bad stuff. So, okay, I like that. So we went to the sections of content, and we can do up to 3 different sections. So I'm going to pull in, let's see, I like this one as well. I'm going to pull in a couple more, 1 more H2 and 2 H3s here. Going to add that in. And if there's any specific notes that your clients have, like don't mention this, avoid this, say this, you can drop all that in the context field. Some of the FAQs are AI. Interesting. Let me look at these FAQs. How do I know? Medical. I just want to see if I can spot any. Interesting. Not bad. I'm curious what AI you used, Matt, for these FAQs. And let's see if it's undetectable. AI content detector. So there are several out there, right? CopyLeaks has one, GPT-0. I like ours because we have a full stack development team. So it's not just you know, one person trying to do a ChatGPT API call. And a lot of these tools they're not that robust. So you got to be careful what tools you use, because the problem with AI detectors is if you use one that's not built well, it will almost always say this reads like a robot. And I'll tell you, like, there are stories in the news of students suing schools because they got kicked out of school because the professor said, "Oh, I ran it through an AI detector and you use ChatGPT." So this is the whole situation right now, where a lot of different industries are experiencing so much upheaval because of AI detectors. Okay, so this passes as human. That's cool. So your FAQs are undetectable. Pretty good stuff. Okay, you used ChatGPT, but you edited it. Very nice. Well, I can tell. And the AI detector can tell too. Okay, so I like what we have going on here. We have samples. We have an introductory sample. So if there's any context, I'm actually going to leave that blank because I like what we set up here, right? Short to the point content. And I think that applies. All right. So we've saved the training model. We can come back to that anytime, change it up. And now we're going to write content. So if I didn't have a topic, what I could do is I could start with keyword research and building out a topic report. So something that I could do is, let's take this keyword, choose UK. Oh, not Ukrainian. Definitely not that. Let's see. UK English. Okay, we'll just stick to English for now. All right, so we can generate a topic report, and then we can go from topic report to content brief. And something else we can do as well is keyword analysis. So there's a whole keyword tool now in Content at Scale that wasn't here about 5 weeks ago. That came out in the last 5 weeks in keyword research, which is a whole tab here. I'm in an account that doesn't have access, so but it is a tool you can get access to from the pricing page. That is an API integration to Mangles, which is a keyword tool I've used the last 4 years. Very robust. So it'll give you pages and pages of data. And again, for me, the benefit of using one tool is it just creates so much more of a seamless workflow. So that's why the less tools I can use, as long as the solution is good, the better. Okay, so I'm going to go straight from, let me see if that topic report is done yet. If it's not, usually it takes about 3 minutes. I'm going to go straight into post creation. That way we can actually see the output and go into the next step, which is how to modify the output, get it ready for publishing. All right, so at this point, I'm going to leave it default, but I would probably do something more around 1,500 words for that keyword. But what this tool will do is it will actually look at the top of Google, break down the average word count, and then it'll stick within that average word count. So I don't need to do that step anymore. I used to need to. You can customize the brief. I like the topic reports better. That's a new feature in the last 2 weeks. Topic reports, custom briefs. That is a brand new feature. Those go a lot more in depth, very similar to what is taught here in the blueprint, with a lot of deep research in the SERPs, making sure that your topic truly does compete and has a chance at getting to the top of Google. And, that's something that creates a lot of buy-in with clients, right? So these topic briefs, topic reports, and then custom briefs that we can do now are super detailed. And I did pull one up. Let me actually go into what it looks like. So this is one that I just did for Content Hacker, a topic report for the keyword content marketing. So we can see it's giving me all of this data, the average readability level I need to hit, the average word count. It's telling me a lot of specifics here, which I like, because then I know data-backed content is always better content, right? The more data you have, the better. So it's telling me the word count of the top results. I can see quickly, there's only one at 8,000 words. That's a lot of words. And then I can scroll down and I can actually see the articles ranking for this keyword. I can see the word count, readability level. So we get really in depth here, right? And this can guide what we would tell our writer to do. But at this point, we're going to create content straight from there. So from the topic report, we can go to a content brief. We can click create content brief, and then we can go straight from there to generating the content itself. So I can click write post, and then it immediately sends it in the queue, and it's going to write that long form piece of content. So let's go back to Matt's keyword. What's the average payout for medical negligence? So if we wanted to customize the brief, this is a basic brief. It gives us the AI is writing these H2s, again, based on what's working in Google. If we want something more detailed, I would definitely do what's under the optimization section now. Let me go back to it. Go in my project here. One project is one website, so you can see got like 12 websites going. But under the content intelligence tab, we can do a lot more detailed topic reports, content briefs, and even an optimization audit of existing content and see how to make that content better. So that's what I would do as opposed to this step, customize brief. I would go in the content intelligence and run a topic report to get to that detailed content brief. And that's something you can actually share with clients as well. If you have the white label version of this platform, you can share a link to that detailed content report, that topic analysis, and that can go straight to a client. Okay, so this is now in the queue. Takes like 7 minutes. Oh, I know we're supposed to be done at 1:30. Let's see. Do we want to keep hanging out? And we could switch over to questions while this is writing, or I could go through. I could show you some of our high ranking content, how it's performing. Let's see, what should we do? Matt says, thanks. Because I definitely want to show you what this looks like. And I know day 2, we're doing more content creation. So there's a lot more we can go here. When you edit, can you see keyword use? Yes, you can. And that's why this is a cliffhanger if we stop here. Because if we don't, and we give it the 5 minutes it needs to create this piece of content, then I can actually show you what it looks like whenever it creates content, which I want to do real time. But what I could do is hop on over into this content piece that I generated a few days ago, 21st of November, and I'll show you what it looks like whenever it generates content. So I can do that for now while we're waiting. Will the rewrite tool rewrite headings as well, or just paragraph text? Oh, good. Somebody says worth the wait. I agree. Yeah, I would really like to see what it does with Matt's topic, because that is a really good informational keyword. So, and I'm going to, because I can do this, I'm on my phone right now in our Slack product channel. And I'm going to tell the team to prioritize Matt's keyword. You don't get that by default. That is not a consonant scale feature, just saying. But I can do that. So let's see here. I'm going to put that through real quick. So I know we had a question. I want to get that answered. We prioritize this keyword. And I didn't even know if I needed to ask. Oh my gosh, it's done already. I couldn't even get to the product team, you guys. Never mind. Never mind. It's already done. That's good. It's pretty fast. Like I said, I did Surfer last week. It took me 20 minutes to see it generate, but it's more of a co-writing experience, so you're building things through that process, which you can here too with the topic reports. I know there was a question. Let me see. Will the rewrite tool rewrite headings as well, or just the paragraph text? So that's a great question. So it'll rewrite headings, it'll rewrite paragraphs. You can direct it. Somebody that I worked with here in Blueprint wrote content for local restaurants. So something he does with content at scale is he will go in. I'll pull up this piece of content so I don't mess up Matt's. And he'll go in here and he'll say, let's say this is like the 7 restaurants in South Congress, Austin, Texas, which is, if you haven't been there, you gotta be. It's amazing. It's called SoCo. Taking notes from California over here in Austin, but it's amazing food. All right. So let's say we're talking about a new restaurant. We want to put a whole new section here. So you can click this little plus button. You can click this H and it'll write a whole new section that doesn't cost credits. So let's say Thai restaurants in Austin, Texas, cover 2 to 3 Thai restaurants. And this is something, day 2, when I talk about people, your AIO writer, which is a whole, I can't wait to share that with you. Like, you can save so much money on writers if you turn your writers into AIOs. But if you do, what you do is you train them to work with this instead of their own brain. And I'm telling you, when you work with AI instead of your own brain as a writer, you get so much faster and further in content production. Okay, anyway, that's a rabbit hole. But yeah, you can use this insert AI written section. You can also go up here to research. This is for a rewrite of the whole thing. Like, if this just did not come out that great, you can rewrite the whole thing up to 2 times. It doesn't take a credit. A credit is 1 post. Okay, so while that's generating a new H2, want to give it like 2 to 3 minutes. We'll go back over to Matt's content, and I'd love if you tell us what you think, Matt, because that's what really matters. Is what the client and what you think of this content piece. And I'll share this with you. We can go up here and we can export it to a Google Doc. So let me go ahead and do that. And then I'll share the link with you directly. So you have that. You can use it, totally yours to keep. But I'll go through a few options here. And then I'd love for Matt to actually read this and tell us what you think of the content. All right. So here's the Google Doc. I'll share this in the comments. Let me go ahead and make this accessible to everyone, but it's Matt's, everybody, so don't use it. I'll just do this so I don't have to give you access. So you have that. Wrong app. Too many apps. All right, there we go. That's Matt's blog on medical negligence. All right, so if we go back to the app, I want to walk you through some of the options. By the way, I just got to say, it looks like that intro paragraph definitely matched some of the really good stuff that I read that was human work that Matt did on this page. Like, this is good content. It's clear. It's to the point. It's positioning this client, this brand really well. There's flow to it. And I got to say, when you have good flow to your content, that positions you. Whenever there's discombobulation and there's a lack of flow, it really makes that person question, should I even trust this company? So, I know we could spend hours on the science of good content, let me tell you. And something that I love about an undetectable SEO AI writer like this AI tool is that it does that flow for you. You don't actually have to think about it. And that's something I have built courses to teach writers on flow because it's so hard for them to get flow right. So we can turn off these click to tweets. We can turn off the key takeaways if we don't want them. This directly integrates to WordPress, by the way, so we can publish just by going up here and changing the status to published. So we can change the WordPress statuses straight from here if we have that integration. And you can set that up per project level. So if you have 50 websites and they all need to integrate to, that client's unique website, you can do that per project. So if we scroll all the way down, just want to go through this. We got our FAQs here. Over here on the right, you can see it's scoring pretty low. So if we scroll down, this is some human work we need to do. So you can click on this, you can see where the keywords are. And then and I'll go through this tomorrow, what you want your AO writer to do is go through this and work in these keywords naturally. Now, the reason this is still a human process is putting keywords into content, which is, keyword optimization, is still a very much human process because it takes so much knowledge of how to actually write well. And that's probably the number one thing that AI still is not that great at is writing well. It's great at formulaic stuff, at algorithmic output. So that's why it's really succeeding at SEO flow. But you still want a writer to come through and add these keywords. So that's something you want to do. The content itself is reading really well. And I think it's because it's pulling from those paragraphs. Matt, you got to tell us what you think. It starts by covering topics that have already been covered in the main landing page. It's good from factors influencing payout amounts onward. Oh, interesting. Okay. So if these are already covered, what we could do is just go and delete. We need to get our word counts down anyway. We can see that the average word count over here on the top right, we need to hit 1,300. That's our max. So Matt just said we can delete what, 4 H2s? Factors influencing payout, 3 H2s, which is another 9 H3s, 8 H3s. So we could delete this whole section, understanding medical negligence, all the way up to the burden of proof lies with the claimant. And then we can regenerate the TOC. Let's see. And that brought us way down, all the word count. So that fixed the word count problem. All right. And then we can regenerate the TOC, which I would do after we're all done with edits. We can do that over here. So that's an easy fix because it's just deleting, right? Versus like writing all this from scratch, which is, you're paying a lot for a writer to do that. Okay, so over here on the right, just want to go through some of the things that I would do in the process. And I'm always handing this off to a writer at this point, a good writer that I can trust to do the right things. So we need to find sources. That's something that it didn't do that good. So I would actually drop these all in Google and then find the source. Right after I get off this call, I'm going to tell the product team the sources aren't linked. What's going on? AI, sometimes it fails. Sometimes it does really good right off the bat. But I mean, the good thing is this is going to do better and better because that's the nature of AI. It's getting better and better. So in the research tab, something that I can do as well is check for any plagiarism, duplicate content, which is important, right? We want 100% original content. So this is an API call to Copyscape, which is a tool I used in my writing team for about 10 years. Oh, you have case studies you could link to. That's really cool. Okay, that's amazing. That is part of the all of funnel approach. If you have specific client examples and case studies, yeah, that's proof. That builds up that proof. So something else we can do from here, just go through these really quick, is AI detection. We can see how this scores. Dun, dun, dun. It's still detecting. And if it comes back as any part of this is robotic, we can actually see which sentences and then fix those. So again, you want a writer doing this, a writer in the seat of the AIO, which we'll go over tomorrow. Healthcare professionals are trusted, are the ones we trust. So that's something I would do as a writer to get that to sound less robotic. But like, see, it took me 2 seconds. If I had to think about all this from scratch, it'd take me a lot longer. Okay, so there's a lot more we could go through here, but I feel like this is a good note to end on, just the beginning process of content creation, because we'll do a lot more tomorrow. From here, it's the process of what your AIO writer will do.